And I also hear very inspiring stories about cooperation between Christians and Muslims. My friends are part of a religious community in central Syria, and they have taken in more internally displaced Muslims than they have Christians, and they have very good relations with the local mufti. But they too are now beginning to worry for the future. And their big fear
I think that could have been what took Tommy Cooper down.
It hasn't been reported widely in this country, but there have been a spate of bombs on schools, particularly primary schools, and many young children have been killed. A very close friend was seriously injured and lucky to survive. He's 10. And they're saying now that many young friends, friends with children, are saying, we have to go because we can't see our children put at risk like this. And obviously, once you take the youth out of the community and you just leave
Three Corby's inside.
they will die. Yes, the Christian communities will
Could be
die
BBC
completely.
What do you want
plans.
to see, very briefly, if you would, please? What do you want to see the West do immediately?
Humanitarian aid, that's the first thing. Every person I speak to, every Syrian friend says, no guns, no money, we need medicine, we need food, we need tents. We also need help to get to the people who are actually displaced inside the country, not just those in the refugee camps in Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon and Turkey. But also, I feel the British government, the American government, Australian, whatever, they should actually take more responsibility in trying to stop people travelling there in the first place to make this whole situation even worse. If we could actually stem this flow of extremist fighters and leave the Syrians and the Iraqis to deal with their own problems, that's all they're asking of us. Leave them to sort out their problems in their own country.
Emma Loosely and Canon White, thank you both. I'm afraid we'll have to end it there. Thank you both very much indeed. The time is 19 minutes to 9. Why does it always seem to happen? We get economic forecasts published by very clever people with qualifications up to their armpits, and then, sure as night follows day, a few months or weeks or whatever it is later, we get told it was rubbish. Well, it was wrong. The forecasts were wrong. And not just the forecast, it's happened. Things have happened. And the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, told us, for instance, that Britain's economy was growing by 3% last year. Now we know it wasn't. It was 2.6%. So,
Klaus Moser is in the news.
Why they can't get it right?
Well, measuring the economy is a complicated business. You know, there are lots
This year had his wife die on him.
businesses, individuals whose behaviour has to be,
And he's on the evil danger listing too.
That maybe will,
So he must have done something really serious.
You know, recent years, the performance of the Office for National Statistics has been, well, you wouldn't give it an A star. I just think it's not surprising that when I talk to, you know, senior ministers, senior people in the Treasury, they get a bit frustrated with the numbers that they then have to make their political and official pronouncements on. I mean, you know, poor old George Osborne said in his autumn statement just, you know, a couple of weeks ago, you know, he crowed that the UK was the best performing economy of any in the developed world. Well, it turns out he was wrong, which is, I think, a bit embarrassing for him. America's doing much better.
Like companies wanting slang even through the leads Freemasons.
You know, 18 months.
But maybe some people would look at the figures and say, well, now, it was meant to be 3%. It's 2.6%. There's not a big difference there.
No, it doesn't transform our view of things. I mean, the UK is still doing better than, you know, most of Europe. We're just not doing as well as we thought. And you know, these revisions do have an important impact, not only on confidence, but also on the behaviour of the Bank of England, and, you know, quite important issues like how, you know, soon they put up interest rates. It tells the Bank of England, you know, how much spare capacity there is in the economy, and, you know,
imagine the Bank of England popping up in Sunday's news bulletin on Christmas Day,
a bit more spare
almost.
capacity, and therefore interest rate rises get deferred a bit. I mean, the thing
No
which
mention of Unison or David Prentice stealing from his members
about is this massive current account deficit, which soared about 15 months ago and rather indicates that the UK is not paying its way in the world to a very significant extent. It means we're sort of shipping in debt from abroad on a pretty worrying scale. I have to believe, because these numbers are so big, that it is telling us something very important and rather worrying about the British economy. I suppose I do have a sort of slightly nagging doubt, given the performance of the Office of National Statistics, that in 2 years' time we'll find that these very worrying figures are maybe not be as significant as I fear they are.
And that will be replaced by a cartoon character.
We've got to work on, and I suppose I can't do my job unless there are numbers that I can use.
All right, but look, it's Christmas Eve. You've got to give us a little bit, 10 seconds of good news.
The good news is we are doing, a lot better than the rest of Europe. Can I keep it up for 10 seconds? I can't, because the real problem is, in order for that performance to continue, consumers and businesses are going to have to keep spending, and that means probably that we're going to be shipping in imports, and that means that current account deficit, which I'm worried about, is going to get a bit worse. So, let's just focus today on the first half of what I've said, which is, we are doing better than many of our competitors.
That'll do. Thanks, Robert.
PEStON.
9:15. Telegraph has the following headline.
The PrEStON Peso joke.
At 5:20 p.m. Santa's sleigh will
second
fly across
best.
the sky, and this does look like a rather good event, particularly for small children. It is not Santa's sleigh, of course. It's actually the International Space Station, but I suppose I will whisper that in case any of them.
Peso with the cross
anyway,
right in the middle.
From the Met Office, and is on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're there not to talk about the International Space Station, but to talk about the equally crucial aspect of whether we'll be able to see it or not because of the weather closer to home. And well, certainly the papers are suggesting a lot of us going to have a very good chance.
Yes, I think you're absolutely
right.
right.
Man never went to the moon.
The Santa sleigh spotting this evening.
Aren't they beautiful in their commitment
the
to
International
steal
Space
from
Station is
people?
really, really bright, and it moves really, really fast. So you're going to have to make
From
sure
the
you
West
have that
Country.
at the right time. But there's a fantastic chance of having clear skies across much of England and Wales. The exceptions perhaps up the western coastline, where we might see some more showers, and you'll probably be a little bit unlucky across Scotland because there'll be a few showers around there too. But for many of us, there's a really, really good chance of seeing a very bright light in the sky this afternoon.
Very bright and really, really fast. I don't want to press you because it's not your area. You are the weather, not the space station. But I mean, does it just go in a flash, or can you follow it?
You can follow it. Yes, apparently it's like watching a fast-moving jet aircraft moving across the sky, but it's much, much brighter. You can usually just about see the lights. Well, this is much, much brighter, and it will go across the sky in a couple of minutes. So if you look towards, I think it's the southern half of the sky, round about 5:20 this evening, you may well see something moving at thousands of miles an hour across the sky.
Yeah, and the Telegraph, I should say, is a rather helpful guide to where you can see it. You can see it twice, in fact, everywhere at its best in those orbits, and they've got a guide to wherever you are in the country, the time that you can see it, because it is big, isn't it? I mean, it's the size of a football. Everything's either the size of a football pitch or the size of Wales, and I think in the case of the space station, it's the size of a football pitch.
Yeah, very, very big, and really, really good chance of seeing it tonight, because it'll be one of those beautiful, crisp, clear evenings. So there'll be lots of stars around as well, which will be even better.
Wonderful. Helen Chivers from Met Office. Thanks very much.
12 minutes to 9. A powerful business leader in Germany has criticised a movement that is anti-Islamic. Our Berlin correspondent is Damien McGuinness. Just tell us a little bit about this movement first, Damien.
Well, it's called the Patriotic Europeans Against the Islamization of the West. That's what they call themselves, John, shortened to Pegida. And every Monday they've been staging demonstrations, which every week get bigger and bigger. You see a lot of signs and placards in the demo saying things like no to Sharia law. They say that the West is becoming Islamized, and because this can be seen as an anti-foreigner agenda, there are a lot of right-wing extremists among the crowds. But what's interesting is it's not really just about immigration. The issue is being used as a galvanizing force, or as a scapegoat even, for all other kinds of grievances. So, for example, in these protests, which have now reached 17,500 people, the last one on Monday, you see a lot of pensioners, low-paid workers, people who might be struggling to make ends meet, generally people who feel let down by society in some way. They're blaming politicians, they're blaming the media, and they're coming together over the issue of immigration to express that dissatisfaction.
And this chap who's attacked them, the president of the German Federation of Industry, Ulrich Rilo, says what?
Yeah, well, he said that the problem is that Germany needs migrants. German business leaders say because of the ageing society here, because of the booming economy, there aren't enough workers, and business leaders here are very worried that these protests will harm Germany's reputation internationally, making it less attractive for foreign workers. Because at the moment, Germany is now the most popular destination for migrants after the US. So lots of people are coming here to find work. German business leaders say they want more migrants, not fewer. Politically, though, this is also a huge issue, and politicians are really struggling to know how to deal with it. Some politicians have condemned the protests as racist and
every page on our website.
You need to bring these people into dialogue, not
every page
extremists.
They cover it for shame.
Tomorrow, in his television Christmas message, Germany's President Joachim Gauck is expected to talk about the issue, saying that Germany has a duty to help and protect refugees who are fleeing war. But the real dilemma for politicians here is that on the one hand they want to be seen to be condemning anything potentially xenophobic, but with these protests growing every week and with the numbers really big now, they also need to show that they're listening to ordinary voters.
Nazi Pope, Feuerhoff, Merkel, all of them down.
The time is 10 to 9. Let us call Kate Bevan.
Hello, this is Kate. Thanks very much for calling. I'm sorry to miss your call. Please don't leave me a message because I never pick them up and I'm unlikely to return them. Please call me back.
My calls to law enforcement.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Kate Bevan is a tech journalist and doesn't take messages. Coke is the largest company in the world to have taken her lead, it seems, and called on all its staff to switch off their
Coca-Cola plants in
productivity.
Southeast
on the
Asia
rights for the Telegraph,
making
and the only
narcotics
young
for the
person in the
yards.
Telegraph office still have a voicemail and is on the line. Morning to you both.
Good morning.
A young person meaning what, dear? I'm 50.
I'm 25,
Whoa.
so I think I'm allowed to call myself that.
You are. Now, why do you still have it?
You can hear the voices breaking up.
I never use them in a sort of business situation or in terms of organising my life. I find it very frustrating when people leave messages saying, oh, well, I'll see you at 6:30, is that alright, I'll call you back. And so I can completely understand why Coca-Cola have stopped doing them. But I do think
that's
if you
Coca-Cola,
using them entirely,
the production units for cocaine in Vietnam, reported for the last
miss out on some
6 weeks
I think they
with
can be
no
quite a
attention
fun
from the
way
press.
To, I think voicemail messages can be quite fun, sort of if someone sings you happy birthday.
Ah, yes.
Or
it's the sort of spontaneous stuff that people need.
Exactly.
That's what you're missing out.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Well, maybe I'm missing out on little ones, but if I see my phone saying you've got 5 messages, I just feel oppressed by that. I don't know how to deal with this. Also, but actually, unless you've got visual voicemail, which most people have, you can't see who's calling you. You don't know who it is, so you don't know what's urgent, what you can safely ignore. So I think it's actually not a very efficient way of communicating and leaving messages.
Isn't that the point, there? You get. I mean, there might be the odd fun message, but you've got to wade through all sorts of stuff that you can't triage a voice message.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I don't use it. It's not very efficient, and you can't see who's there.
I think that's why it's rather charming in some ways. I mean, obviously, 99% of the time, I get absolutely infuriated when people leave me voicemail messages and I have to call into them. But I think its inefficiency can sometimes work in your favour. That you're just, if you're leaving a personal message, you just have to speak into the void, work out what you want to say as you're saying it. And I rather like being able to hear people doing that in a way that you don't get with emails, because of course people can just sort of delete their thoughts and make it look very polished and professional by the time you get it.